Hello and welcome to Low Carb Conversations. I'm your host, Leah Williamson. We're down a host this week. Holly's not feeling too well, so she's not with us, but we've got an extra special guest today, Aaron. I say extra special because we've had you on before and we've got you back on again. So welcome to the podcast, Aaron Day.
Thank you so much for having me back, Leah. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I can bring some insight back into the podcast a little bit and bring some expertise as I did last time, I guess.
Excellent. Yes. Well, we had a great chat last time. I think we spoke about more on the cooking side, like keto cooking and all the secrets to those ingredients. That was episode 362. So Aaron was on that one. But just to recap, I'll give a little brief introduction for everybody because we've just jumped right in there. Aaron is an accredited nutritional therapist, an advanced sports exercise nutritional advisor, clinical weight loss practitioner, and keto blogger. Well, we might say, are you still a keto blogger? We might talk about that.
Well, we can definitely talk about that. Yeah, we can hold on to that one.
He has a great page called Fat for Weight Loss. So welcome to the podcast, Aaron.
Yeah, when you say all of those things behind my name, I'm like, oh, that's right. I have done all of those things, but also I just want to help as many people as possible. And I think that, podcasts are a great way to do that. So yeah, I'm super excited to jump in.
Excellent. And since we spoke to you last, you had a new addition to the family, I think. So
yes, yeah, we've now got a 1-year-old little girl running around our house at the moment. And, it's been one of the most crazy, but one of the most special times, ever. And, as you probably know, like having kids will just change your life forever. And I think that anyone else out there who is in the same boat, the pain and the struggle that the first year is like, and then obviously it probably gets worse. So I'm in for a real shock.
Everyone keeps saying to me, mine are like 9 and 11 now. It gets easier. And then, no, it's just different sets of problems. Yeah. And rewarding and fun. Absolutely. My husband and I were like, we finally knew we made it when we could sit down at a restaurant together and enjoy our meal and send the kids off somewhere to go and do something. Or you go to the swimming pool and the kids can play in the pool and you can sit back and just watch and not have to get in with them. It's like, we've finally made that stage.
Yeah. It never gets easier. It just gets different, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm not looking forward to teenagehood though. Yeah. I know what I was like as a teenager. So
yeah.
All right. So do you want to just share a little bit for listeners that haven't gone back and listened to 362, just a little bit about your history and what brought you to be delving into this world of keto, and then we're going to talk about what's happening now.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started keto, I was doing a lot of endurance cycling, a lot of endurance running, lots of marathons, all those sorts of things. And I didn't really love the fact that when you're using a lot of carbohydrates, you have this like limited fuel tank you get to the point where if you're not fueling correctly, then you get this quote unquote bonk, which is basically where your blood sugar levels drop too low and you feel like you just have to stop. So I tried switching to keto, and that was pretty pivotal for me because I thought, carbs equal energy, right? And then bringing fat in, I thought, well, wow, this is a whole nother ball game, and you feel like you could go forever. And so I started doing recipes on a website, and that website eventually kind of exploded because there wasn't that many recipes around for keto at the time. It was pretty new. There was not a lot of how-to, and so the website was a really good resource for a lot of people to start cooking and making their own bread, and moving away from the traditional ideas of carbohydrates have to be in every single meal. So that's the website, and I've released 3 cookbooks, and I've done lots and lots of work in the ketogenic space. And yeah, that's kind of my background. Yeah.
How many cookbooks have you written now, do you think?
Yeah, so I've done 3 cookbooks. So
3,
the first one was keto desserts, the second one was meal prep, and then the third one was air fryers. So there's like lots of different aspects in there, and I've pretty much used every single appliance for lots of different ways in keto. But 3 cookbooks.
Yeah, that's great. I love the air fryer one. I use that one regularly. I'm not a big sweet person, so I haven't, didn't really get into the other ones, but the air frying one, that's my thing. I love the air fryer.
Love that. Yeah, awesome. The chicken recipe in particular, like cooking a whole chicken in the air fryer.
Yeah.
Really good.
Really good. Yeah. So, well, you've done so many things. I think, yeah, like we were saying in the start, I'll read out your qualifications, a long list. It's good to look back and see how far you've come and how far you've progressed. And one of the reasons I wanted to get you on today was that I've been really enjoying the content that you've been producing on your Instagram stories and your Instagram about how you're like adding more carbs back into your diet now. And I thought that would be a really interesting topic for you to share with our listeners. So do you want to tell us a little bit about, yeah, what happened there and how you're approaching that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in the process of all the blogging that I was doing, I was also helping people one-on-one. And the reason why I was doing that was because the website was a great way to give a lot of help to a lot of people, but I couldn't necessarily see the impact on a personal basis. I couldn't see people losing weight. I couldn't see how I was helping people just by releasing a website into the interwebs. And so I started doing nutrition coaching, and that was about 2.5, 3 years ago now, and helping people go keto in a specific way. And so the way that I did it was that, or still do it, is that I really believe ketogenic diet is a great way to lose weight because you don't have those hunger pangs. You don't have all of those up and down roller coaster rides that you can sometimes get with carbohydrates. And a lot of people were coming to me just wanting to lose weight, wanting to better their health with the ketogenic diet. But what I found was that it wasn't something that everyone wanted to be on forever. And that was a turning point for me, because I thought, there's nothing wrong with being keto forever, but why aren't we learning about how to bring them back in once we've been keto? Because I found that a lot of my clients were having a lot of fear around, they've lost weight using keto. They've been able to get to the best health in their entire life simply by removing carbohydrates from their diet. But in the process, they've also built up a lot of fear about carbs, right? And they don't want to touch carbs because they're going to add weight back on, and they're going to, balloon back up to their previous weight. And that just simply wasn't the case. And so working with a lot of clients in that period really helped me solidify that to myself. And so about a year and a half ago, I actually moved myself away from the ketogenic diet and focused more on bringing carbs back in. And I found a lot of benefits to that. And also a lot of my clients have found a lot of benefits to that as well. So it was at that point where, maybe the ketogenic diet was really helpful, but it created a lot of fear. And it created a lot of fear around whole foods, right? It wasn't just this fear of eating cheesecake or fear of eating cheeseburgers or whatever. It was like, I can't have a lemon or I can't have a beetroot because it's got too many carbs in it. And I thought, wow, this is getting out of control. So now my mission is to, I help people go keto and get healthy and then bring the carbs back without gaining the weight back.
Yeah. It sounds so simple, right? But when we're talking about carbohydrates, let's break that down, because there's still a difference between the types of carbohydrates that you're bringing back, right? You're not bringing back like a Big Mac and fries, are you?
Sure. Well, a lot of the addictive aspect to carbohydrates, because, most people who had a bad relationship with food, quite frankly, had addictions, or they might have had, binge eating disorders, or there may have been a lot of food psychology stuff that was going on. And it wasn't necessarily that it was the carbohydrates that were the problem. It was the combination of fat and carbohydrates devoid of protein that was causing these superfoods that you would eat way more of than you necessarily needed. If you think about cheesecake, it's a combination of cream cheese, sour cream, sugar, which is the carbs, right? And a whole bunch of other stuff. You think about a cheeseburger, it's a combination of that burger bun. It's also a combination of some protein, but mostly fat. A lot of takeaway has that added extra fat, which can be really helpful if you go keto, because you just kind of play bun frisbee and get rid of the carbs, right? But it was those foods that were these amalgamations of both that were the problem. And it wasn't that my clients really understood that or took that to that next level where they were saying, okay, well, maybe what happens if I bring back some of these just normal carbohydrates? So if you think about potato, or you think about sweet potato, or if you think about fruit, or if you think about, I don't know, even some whole grains, right? It's bringing back some of those carbohydrates in a strategic way and some of the best times to do that is when you get to your goal weight. So if you've use the ketogenic diet and you've lost weight and you're looking to get back, or you're able to maintain that weight long term, ultimately you want to kind of reverse that dieting process. So you want to reverse some of the metabolic adaptations that have happened during reducing your total energy intake, but also getting back to a higher amount of food. So bringing carbohydrates back slowly was part of the process there. And in reality, most foods break down to protein, carbs, and fats, right? The combination of sugar and fat is tricky because that is very addictive. But when you bring it back in a structured way, and maybe if you're doing that with maybe a meal plan, or maybe you're doing that with certain portions of food, and if you're doing it slowly, then your body gets used to that again, so that you can be what I call dual fuel, or have a little bit more metabolic flexibility. So you can use those carbohydrates around times where you're really active, and maybe use fat more in a time when you're more sedentary. Or if you are building your metabolism back up to a higher point, then maybe keeping the fat the same and bringing the carbs back instead of just going overboard with the fats, because there's also a limit where people just don't want to be dredging their food in olive oil because it gets a bit too much. But yeah, that's kind of the process. And the difference between those two, carbs and fats, right? It's if you bring back whole carbs, if you bring back whole foods, you are going to have a much better, I guess, like hunger and satiety signals with that, as opposed to just going straight for the combinations of food.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I think like from everything that we've seen with the way low carb and keto is going, it's really metabolic flexibility that you want to strive for. It's not that you want to be able to be hardcore keto forever, or intermittent fast, or, forever, and all of those kind of things. You really want to have that flexibility to be able to fast when you want to fast, be keto when you want to keto. But then if you want to add some, I don't know, rice back in or something like that in one of those meals, you want the body to be able to withstand that without, going crazy and spiking the blood sugar.
Yep.
But it's important to do the underlying work first. Would you agree to that statement?
Absolutely. So getting your body to a point where it is able to burn fat, getting into a state of ketosis, I've found from working with clients that the longer someone can be in ketosis for, the better their body will remember it. It's kind of like muscle memory in a way, where you are pretty good at using coconut oil for fuel, and your body knows how to do that, right? After 40, 50, 30, 20 years of doing a high carb diet, going keto, it's a small blip in your evolution of your particular person, but then you know how to do it. And so when you bring carbs back in, it's not that your body's forgotten how to use carbs because you've been using them your entire life, but you've given your body the chance to be able to utilize fat. And so going keto can really help. And then bringing those back in a way that is sustainable and healthy is the ultimate solution, really.
Yeah, definitely. And so I've got an article here. It's a rather long article. It's a lady who's written a book, and it's talking about how to lose weight healthily according to science, and the diet myths that do more harm than good. And so I'll link that up into the show notes for everyone, but you can have a read through it. I think my thoughts around it are some good information in there, some information that we've heard before that we know has been debunked. So we'll just, take it with a bit of grain of salt. But one thing that I wanted to talk about was so we've talked about, we're adding carbs back in because you don't want to be keto forever kind of thing. That was the statement that, you made, but there's other health benefits to carbohydrates, right? So I wanted to talk about some of the health benefits. In the article here, she's talking about the fiber in carbs improves digestion and maintains steady blood sugar levels. Yep. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the benefits that you see of adding carbohydrates in, just besides variety? And yeah,
absolutely. So I always say gut health is one of the lead dominoes of the rest of your health. So if you're experiencing blood sugar issues, if you're experiencing sugar cravings, if you're experiencing adrenal issues, all of those things, fixing your gut health can be one of the important places to start. And as a nutritional therapist, we kind of work in that realm where you want to fix top down and make sure that you're actually processing food properly. So The biggest lever you can pull with gut health is adding fiber to your diet. There is so much marketing out there about kombucha and how it has all these beneficial probiotics and yada, yada, yada. So probiotics are great, but for people who are not consuming enough fiber, it can be problematic long-term because you just don't have the raw materials for the good bacteria to be able to utilize in your gut. It can have, now I'm not saying that this is a cause and effect relationship, but a lot of my clients who are suffering from things like diverticulitis, they can really benefit from adding carbs back in and adding in particular fiber, so that, you know, they're able to utilize that properly. But in terms of gut health, adding fiber back in, one of the biggest levers you can pull, because it's just providing that really good raw material for the lactobacillus and the bifidus to be able to colonize properly and work in their particular ways. Gut health is a much broader context. Like, we also have to prevent some of the foods that are causing issues in the first place. We want to make sure you're actually digesting those foods properly too. But adding fiber in can be a really helpful way to improve your gut health as well.
Yeah, definitely. That I've seen the benefits of this as well myself, in that I've always, when I've eaten low carb, I've always had veggies. I'm not fearful of vegetables. Yeah. I always think they're really important. They add variety. They taste Absolutely. Good. I like veggies. But being paleo for many, many years now, like 10 years, I never ate any legumes whatsoever. And when I first ate legumes, they would give me really bad stomach upset and, all the things that come with eating legumes. But once I think maybe around the start of 2020, like around the start of the pandemic, things start flaring up because we're stressed as well. And my skin started breaking out. And for me, one thing, I've never had any skin issues, but I know from nutritional therapy that, skin problems usually residing from something that's happening in the gut. Mm-hmm. And so I went on a little bit of a research adventure for that. And I came across people that were adding legumes back into their diet after being paleo or low carb for so long. And I started by adding just a few properly prepared, mind you, because that's really important as well. Just some botoli beans, some pinto beans back into the diet. I still don't do well with chickpeas, those kind of ones. I tend to like more the brown beans. They tend to do better for me. And I'm not joking. Within about 2 weeks, my skin totally cleared up, and a lot of kind of little niggling problems that I didn't realize that I had started clearing up as well. Like, my digestion was super fast and doing really well. My skin was clear. I felt more energetic, and I was feeling more satiated actually between meals, even though I've always been kind of, eating a higher fat diet. So to me, I saw that positive benefit of adding that fiber back in almost immediately. And it was so surprising to me, because I had been not consciously fearful, but maybe subconsciously fearful of adding legumes back in, because we're always like, no paleo, no beans, no, not at all. So I can definitely see that benefit for some people if they're experiencing those issues, to start experimenting by adding a few legumes back in, or other high fiber vegetables they may have been avoiding.
That's so true. I've seen that with a lot of clients. Also, with gut health, if you're losing weight, or if you're potentially have a lot of fat soluble toxins, being able to move those through quite quickly, fiber can be really helpful for that. Can be helpful for clearing out the liver too. So there's lots and lots of benefits there. When it comes to gut health as well, a lot of people, when they go keto, they experience the swing back and forth between constipation and diarrhea, right? And most of the time, if we remove either gluten or dairy, that goes away. And it's interesting that you're talking about paleo and, bringing back in the beans. For some people, when they go keto, it's just like cheese 24/7, right? And they go, why am I experiencing all this constipation and diarrhea? Well, as soon as we remove cheese, then that's where it kind of helps. But the problem with keto is that because it is a high fat diet, when you remove dairy, you're removing a big food group that most people kind of rely on with keto. So to combat that, adding carbs back in to replace some of those missed foods that they can have on a daily basis. Like I didn't go properly dairy free until I was able to get away from keto, just because it was too hard. It was too restrictive, right? So there's lots of other benefits to adding carbs back in, just even from a mindset perspective too.
Yeah, definitely. So variety, fiber, mindset, and then also, if you've got food sensitivities, like you were saying, it's really hard to remove dairy and do keto at the same time. And I think that's why I've probably always stayed in the low carb kind of realm, because I do have a problem with dairy. And when, I always found it really difficult not to, go and add sour cream to something.
Yep.
I still would like to do that, but I can't.
I mean, coconut sour cream is not quite the same, is it?
No, it's not. Coconuts are not the same substitute. A bit like cauliflower. It's not really the same substitute for everything.
It's not rice. Yeah.
That's right. So, well, tell us, what kind of foods have you been enjoying adding back in?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the times there's a little bit of a step-by-step process. So generally when people go keto, they're adding in lots of green leafy vegetables. And that's a great way because you're getting some of the electrolytes from that. You're also getting some volume and fiber just from those particular foods. And you're just able to, I guess, like you're able to, depending on what your goals are, you're able to be in a sustainable caloric deficit if you're trying to lose weight by adding plenty of vegetables back in, because you're not just eating this tiny piece of whatever, right? But from there, when you reach your goal weight, or if you're transitioning into back eating more carbs, then adding a few more in kind of a bit of a particular way can really help. So going from green leafy veggies, maybe adding back some of those cruciferous vegetables, or even adding back some of those, larger vegetable groups from the starchier types of vegetables. So things like, broccoli, things like cabbage, things like peas, things like corn, things like, snow peas, all of those types of things. Vegetables still should probably comprise a big part of your carbohydrate consumption, because they come with a lot of fiber. They come with a lot of that beneficial stuff that we were talking about just before. I've also started adding some fruit back in too, because especially being summer here in Australia, fruit is everywhere. It's awesome. It's delicious. Like getting a mango from the shops is like the best thing ever. and I from a lot of my clients as well, I was getting this feedback saying like, what, I just really crave fruit right now. And that could be because they're in their summer, or, maybe it's eating seasonally, or so adding fruit back in can be really helpful. I found like I have a great love for bananas. And so being able to add a banana back in was helpful. But
are you making all the frozen banana treats now?
Oh no, I just me and my daughter are like monkeys. We just love a banana here and there, but also going from green leafy vegetables to the larger vegetable spectrum, going up into fruits. And then also I've been adding some oats back in as well. And for me, like, if you think about it, oats have a lower GI than a lot of other carbohydrates. You think about sweet potato. Sweet potato's got a pretty high GI, but it's in that kind of like healthy carb range. Whereas oats, we would go, oh no, we can't eat those. But it has a lower GI value, and it's actually been really, really working for me. So it's a little bit about individuality as well. It's maybe a little bit of your environment, of what is happening around you too. It could be native to where you live. It could be seasonal. So, there's lots of variations there, but yeah, I have been loving adding some of those foods back in, but I never eat them by themselves. So when I'm talking about bananas, when I'm talking about oats, when I'm talking all that sort of stuff, I'm always combining that with protein and fats, because if you start eating carbohydrates by themselves, then that's where it gets a bit tricky. And we can dive into some of those like tactics that I help clients with as well. But that's probably the first one, is like, don't eat carbohydrates by themselves.
We've heard that one before. Like, I think that's a common one in the kind of low carb keto world too. Many people suggest that. So maybe do you want to go a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole reason why most people go keto, whether you're dealing with type 2 diabetes, or whether you've got an insulin sensitivity problem, or whether, you just don't do well with those big blood glucose rises and crashes on the other side. The reason why a lot of that stuff happens is because the carbohydrates process very quickly through your body. They convert directly into blood sugar. Then your pancreas has to release insulin to be able to bring that down. And then your blood sugar level then crashes below where it started off with. And that's where the problem starts. If you do that too much, then your body becomes resistant to the hormone insulin. And then, lots of other flow-on effects happen. But if we can slow down the absorption of carbohydrates so that you don't have this massive spike. So when we talk about GI values, it's basically how quickly a food or a carbohydrate enters your bloodstream. There's also carbohydrate load. So how much actual carbohydrate is in actual food. And so how much of that is going to actually contribute to over time. But what you're doing when you're adding carbohydrates plus fat plus protein is you're delaying the absorption of those carbohydrates so that you're not getting this big spike and a crash on the other side. You are keeping your blood sugar levels very consistent. And some people have better sensitivity to carbohydrates, some people don't. So it's all about trying to find that balance on where you are. Typically I think that if your fasting blood sugar levels is over 6 millimoles per liter, then it's probably good to start with keto first and build back some of that insulin sensitivity. But if your fasting blood sugar levels comes down, that's where you can start playing with adding some carbohydrates back in. But again, trying to add them into a meal is the best way to do that so that you don't have that fast, rapid acting glucose, unless you're doing that for a particular reason.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you like having with your banana? Some peanut butter or something like that?
I could have a steak, and I could have some vegetables, and I could have a banana. Like, I'm pretty weird, but but also, like, maybe a better example is for breakfast, having some oats, having some banana, having a scoop or two of plant protein powder, or even whey protein powder if you can tolerate it, or collagen powder, and adding some almond butter to that, or even having a tablespoon of fish oil with it. So it can really get weird or good depending on what you like.
So your next recipe book we're going to see is different variations of the oat bowls.
Yeah, I call them nourish oat bowls. However you would combine that.
Yeah. Well, I'll look forward to that one. Well, there's certainly some complexities involved with it. So I think working with a practitioner, if you're not sure where to start, is probably the best place. So do you want to talk a little bit about how people who are listening, they might be interested in working with you, how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the times I'm on Instagram, probably not on Facebook as much as I used to be. So, and maybe some people aren't either. So that's probably a good thing. Instagram is probably a great way. support@fatweightloss.com.au is a great email address you can email me at. If you're looking at doing something similar yourself, it's really important to be able to do it in a way that makes sense and you have some strategy behind it. Because, more than welcome, like, for people using the strategies that I've spoken about in this podcast, give it a try yourself. If for some reason that doesn't work with you, or if it's still causing some of those issues that you were trying to fix by going keto, then maybe a better approach might be appropriate. So on Instagram is probably the best way to contact me. And just let me know if you need help. I'm more than happy to lend a hand.
That's great. And I saw that you were having some workshops as well, some little webinars to get people started with a few ideas. So should they just go to your website and find out when the next ones of those are coming up?
Yeah, so website's a great place. Even if you jump onto my emailing list, that's a great place too as well. The last workshop I did was called Done Keto, Now What? And so it was about bringing carbs back in a bit of a structured way. And that was really beneficial for so many people, because there's so much carb phobia that's floating around. There's so much fear around bringing back carbohydrates. If you had success with keto, even if you haven't had success with keto, it's been a pretty popular diet trend or nutritional aspect for a long time. And when you bring back carbs, you feel like you have to eat them in isolation or eat them behind closed doors, or you hope that no one sees you. Yeah. And I guess that's part of food psychology a little bit too. And I do work with a lot of people who have struggled with addiction to carbohydrates or addiction to food in general. So that's definitely in my wheelhouse as well. Although it's probably best to see a food psychologist. There is a great website called the Butterfly Foundation who can help a lot of people with that. And they do free consultations there as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we'll link that one up as well in the show notes for people. Yeah, and I've got a little funny kind of thing to finish on here. It's just like the predictions for the 2022. We always kind of do this at the start of each year. But, you know, we've got a list here. We'll have a quick look at them. But is there something that you think is maybe it's on here, maybe it's not, but a prediction for a trend that you can see that's going to come through this year?
Well, it's funny because I lived for so long in the ketogenic community, and how social media works is that you kind of get this echoing effect of what you believe and what you think is true, right? And so when I stepped away from that, it was interesting to see that there's a whole much bigger world out there of people kind of bashing keto in a way. And so I don't necessarily think that keto is a fad diet. I do think that the popularity is probably dropping a lot, just because it's not the only way to lose weight. But I do think scientific backed evidence-based nutrition will have a big rise, because there's been this huge swing between, like, if you think about the 80s, we had this big low fat craze, and now we had this big high fat craze, and I think somewhere in between is probably a really good place to start. But evidence-based nutrition, evidence-based, knowledge, I think is always going to be pretty rock solid. So in terms of trends, I would say that it's probably going to boil down to what the science says.
Yeah.
But there's scientific evidence for both sides, and it's tricky. I'm not good for trends, but I definitely think people won't be so scared of fat. People won't be so scared of fasting either. Yeah,
definitely. I always love to think about like what vegetable will be the new it vegetable, like we had kale, cauliflower, like I'm hoping it'll be beetroot. That's my favorite one to bring back, because that's what helps you digest fat. So that's what everybody's lacking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those digestive enzymes, or the bile production from that in combination with vitamin C.
Yeah.
Very good.
That is the superfood there, beetroot, bringing it back.
Yeah. Best pre-workout too.
Yeah. These ones this is from Eating Well's top 10 food and nutrition. So there was a lot around, but most of them were pretty much saying the same thing. They're saying that beauty from the inside out is a huge one. And we can see that already with lots of collagen powders on the rise. Collagen's being put basically in everything at the moment. So definitely seeing that one rising. Edibles and cannabis as well. So, that's been really big in the US. The few times I've been over there, I've seen how big that's been. We just really haven't had it hit Australia here too big yet, have we?
No, we haven't. And I think it's a shame, because there would be so many people who could benefit from something like that. It's just about bringing more awareness to the whole spectrum. And the more people know, the better choice they have. And maybe it's not for everyone, but I do think there would be a lot of people that it would help. Yeah,
definitely a place for that. Superfood lattes, functional beverages. Like, I think we've been on this functional beverage train for a long time now, haven't we?
Well, it started with bulletproof coffee, I guess, right?
That's right. Yeah. What's your favorite functional beverage?
Black coffee. That's it.
Yeah. I know. Well, I gave up coffee at the start of last year, so I've gone a year off coffee now. So
how are you feeling? How are your adrenals working better? And
yeah, I think it was pretty hard to start with. Every now and then I do need a black cup of tea to get things more awake again. But apart from that, I've been having my cacao bliss, which has been a sponsor of the podcast as well. And I enjoy that once a day, or not even once a day, once every now and then. Yeah. So I've been feeling pretty good without it, not needing it. And then kind of like a bit like carbohydrates, I suppose. Every now and then I'll be like, oh, everyone's out having a coffee and this is a really good coffee shop. I'm just going to enjoy one.
Yeah, absolutely. I gave up coffee for 3 months as well.
Yeah.
I found it really helpful. A lot of people don't realize that if you have coffee by itself, it spikes your cortisol levels, and that in turn can also spike your blood sugar levels. So it's not just carbohydrates that are doing the spiking of the blood sugar levels and insulin resistance too. So
yeah, coffee is a big one. And I really love how I used to maybe suffer from a little bit of anxiety, but just more induced from the coffee, not from any other reason. Yeah. And I haven't had any of that. So sometimes I would wake up in the morning and I'd be like, there's something I need to do. what is it? That kind of,
Yep.
wake up. And then I'd realize once I stopped drinking coffee, I didn't have any of those wake ups anymore.
Yep.
So that was definitely a positive benefit from
Yeah,
it.
really good. I get a lot of my clients to cut out caffeine because so many of them are drinking 20 plus cups a day. And I'm like, let's start with one.
I'm the weirdo that goes down to the local place and I'm like, oh, I'd really love a decaf macadamia latte.
Yeah. And they go, yep, no worries. It's
like,
probably
sure.
what everyone's going to be ordering soon. So
that's my functional beverage of choice.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
We've got one here. It's waste-free cooking. I kind of like the sound of this one. So it seems that people are going to focus more on reducing packaging waste, which is really needed because there's so much in that. Absolutely. And and I think even too, like I thought inside of this one that they're actually minimizing not just the packaging, that's what they're talking about here, but also people are getting more into using everything as well, rather than, like one of my things I've always loved to do is when I'm cutting up my vegetables, I keep all the ends and scraps and stuff and freeze them because I never have enough time right then and there while I'm doing the cooking. I freeze them. And then later on when I'm making a broth, or I might make a vegetable paste out of it, and then I use that vegetable paste back through cooking and it tastes like a stock almost. So yeah.
So or even composting that stuff as well. Like I think people getting into composting and worm farms and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, we've got worms. That's what we tell people. The outside worms, that's what we got. This one here is brain food. So I guess this is just a new thing. People more interested in longevity and mental health for this one. So we're looking more at these brain foods, what foods to eat best for your brain health, which I always thought was what is it, walnuts, because they look like the brain. Yeah.
I guess if you take that to the nth degree of like you are what you eat, then getting smart about it. But I definitely think that a big part of understanding fats and understanding keto is that you now know like, hey, you can get fat from saturated fat, you can get it from omega-3s, you can get it from omega-6, and when you do start bringing carbs back in, then that's where omega-3s can be really beneficial to make sure that you're getting a good amount of those. Alzheimer's is that third insulin sensitivity route, and I just think it's kind of scary. And so if you can get your body really built to burn fat and then transition back, and you can go back and forth, and you have the best of both worlds, right? Yeah,
definitely. So then they've got kelp and seaweed as well. So yeah, that's been one that I've seen coming through in some of the a lot of things. And I know that I have a friend who makes like a supplement that actually has kelp from Tasmania, which is like, really, really clean ingredients incorporated with some liver powder to create a supplement. So there's your superfood tablet right there.
So do they use the kelp for the iodine purposes, or what's the?
So
that's so many people have thyroid issues that I've been working with. And I mean, like thyroid is a bit of a complex between your gut, your liver, and your adrenals, but that the iodine and selenium and a whole bunch of other nutrients can really help there too.
Yeah. So that looks like a good one coming through. And then this one I wanted to talk to you about was sustainable grains. So these are talking about perennial, I can't even say that word. I haven't used it for a long time, as opposed to annual grains. So these are new types of, or not new types, but just like putting more focus on these grains that develop a deeper root system than annuals. Have you tried eating any of these different kinds of grains at all?
I actually haven't. Generally, when I go for grains, so my family had a lot of livestock up North Queensland, Central Queensland, and they also had farms of like chickpeas and grains of those types, and a lot of them sprayed with glyphosate. And so a big portion of the grains that I do eat, I 100% make sure that they're organic. Because that can be a big toxic profile. But I don't know too much about the like biannual type grains. Has it got a list on that website?
This one is called Kernza, which I haven't heard of before. So I'm not sure. It doesn't give a good list of how many different ones, but It says these deep roots help prevent soil erosion and trap harmful greenhouse gases underground. So they're actually better for regenerative agriculture. So
I always love the idea of biodynamic farming. So they just, switching between the different agricultural aspects. But I guess also tracking the carbon is a great idea too.
Yeah. This next one is seafood. I like that seafood's coming back in. We had a nice Christmas lunch this year because they weren't able to, export all the lobsters. So we had lobster at a good price, tasted delicious. So I like seafood's coming back in, and so many health benefits for seafood as well, especially though, making sure you're buying the right kind if you're eating a lot of it as well.
Yeah.
Number 9 was plant-based diet. I guess it just gets a whirl every year. I'm sure it's not a new trend, but it's a constant trend.
I always think the plant-based diet is just like trying to eliminate dairy, and so many people feel much better on that. So, hey, whatever works for them, awesome.
Yeah, that's right. I hate I shouldn't say hate, that's a strong word, but I dislike with the plant-based diet, how much of the fake meat stuff is starting to come through. And that's been really big in the last few years. And it's even more so like when you go to the supermarket, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but they're actually even putting the plant-based meat next to real meat. It's confusing for consumers if you're just going in there and trying to pick something up. So
I think as well, though, if you talk to a lot of people who are living a plant-based lifestyle, they probably don't go for that kind of stuff anyway. And maybe some of the reason they went plant-based initially was that they just wanted to get better at cooking, or they wanted to stop eating the cheeseburgers and your cheesecake, right? So how much of people actually eat those foods, I don't know, but yeah, they're definitely not a health food by any means.
Wait, no way. We just have to look at the ingredients for that. And then number 10, this is my favorite one, chillable red wines. That's the new health trend coming through, chillable red wines.
Well, I mean, like it's kind of like room temperature beer, right? It's probably an acquired taste.
That's right. I don't mind a nice cool wine, maybe a rosé or something like that on a hot summer's day. Maybe, like a dry rosé, that is, of course.
Absolutely.
Every now and then. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. We've had a great chat. I'll link everything up on the show notes. But yeah, it's always great talking to you. Thanks, Aaron.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for letting me come back on the podcast. And, I hope the information was helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed this topic. That's the end of today's episode. Our theme music is created by Andrew Bowden and production services are by Kevin Kennedy Spain. Have a great week, everyone.